But my older brother, was a little bit tougher in that sense. That I'm a little bit, with a Spanish word, a little stubborn, and he actually got involved in that lifestyle. Through my friends, though, I did meet a few people that I did befriend a lot of people that were gangbangers, and we would hang out and do things. Eventually, though, I kind of stepped back as they started dabbling into some crime and drugs and doing things that I didn't feel comfortable with. Again, my brother, on the other hand, he actually didn't, and he pursued it. He kind of pursued it a little bit further, and that involved some questionable activity. My father at the time, he worked. He initially, when we came to here from Mexico, he worked in the fields. Sometimes we'd go out to the field and help him. Eventually, though, he was able to start working as a janitor and then as a cook. So working 2 jobs for 16 hours a day for about 6 days a week. Didn't need a lot of time to really kind of take care of us. And my mom, in her own right, was busy, given that she was raising 2 teenage boys and 3 younger girls. So, you know, the reason why I mentioned this, a lot of this kind of fell on me in terms of my mother and father, even though my brother was older, they really put it on me to take care of my brother and make sure that he stayed out of trouble. So, you know, secondary, due to the economic hardships we had and having to, let me step back. In addition to that, having to do that, I also, at a young age, I think I was about 13, I started working part-time during school to be able to help my father provide for our family financially. That and the fact that my mom couldn't stand me at home because I was always picking on my 3 sisters. So what happened was, you know, when you combine both the economic hardships that we have, as well as that we were facing, as well as the fact that every time, when I was in school, when I wasn't working, when I was taking care of my brother, I really didn't have a lot of time to focus on my education. So my academic performance suffered quite a bit. Initially, though, in junior high, you know, sometimes when you're smart, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you can kind of get away with certain things. In junior high, I definitely got away with not really doing homework, just listening in class and then performing well on the test and passing my grades. So that happened through junior high. High school, on the other hand, is a different matter. I didn't do very well in high school. As a matter of fact, actually, I did so poorly after my my first 2 years in high school that I was really contemplating dropping out of high school. Initially, I went to my parents and I talked to them and I said, you know, this is what I'm thinking. My father and mother, you know, supported me in whatever decision I would make, but they definitely made it clear that if I was going to drop out, I'd be having to work full time and so that I could be able to help the family out. You know, I fought long and hard. During that time, I would take a bus to about 30 minutes every day after high school to be able to work. And during that time, I would think about things. A lot of thoughts. There'd be a lot of thought process going on, thinking about my future and what's going on. Ultimately, I decided that, you know, because my brother had already dropped out of school at that point, I wanted to finish high school. I wanted to be able to be the first person in my family to graduate from high school. So ultimately, I ended up taking some night classes, Saturday classes, and what have you, to make up the credits that I had lost. Just imagine 2 years of that happening. Luckily for me, back in 1991, I graduated with a cumulative GPA of 1.89. Hey, I graduated. I can't believe maybe the beard was already showing. So what happened was, you know, right after graduating from high school, I was happy with that, but I never, you know, I didn't feel very satisfied inside. But I finished my goal that I had at that time. So I started working at a place called Mervin's. It's closed now. You guys look so young. You guys look so young. I'm not sure if you guys remember that place. But anyhow. So I worked there, and I worked 40 hours, and I would work full time there, what have you. And you know, that job for me was very, you know, it was a very important part of my life because during that time, during the summers and vacation breaks, that a lot of the people that worked there, during the summer vacation breaks, a lot of people from other colleges would come in, and they would start working there, and they would talk to them, and I would talk to them. It was really awesome because they would expose me to the writings and logic of like Socrates, the Tao, Plato, and even more importantly, the one thing I did learn about them, you know, that there wasn't really much of a difference between them and myself. I kind of realized that. I was like, wow, maybe this college thing or going back to school could be something that would work for me. And I couldn't see myself working as hard as my father did for the amount of the guys working. So anyhow, what happened was I decided, it's time for me to think about going back to school. I couldn't start immediately though, because I was at a point where I couldn't do it financially, and plus my parents were really dependent on me to help them out financially at that point. So I worked for 2 years. I worked 2 jobs, trying to save up money, get myself in a position, and I started going. I got myself in a position that in 1995 I went back to school. I went to De Anza Junior College. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but that's in Cupertino, right down the street a bit, or down the freeway at least. So at De Anza College, I was not really hard for me to pick what major I wanted to do. As I look back and I thought back to high school, one of the few classes that I knew I really enjoyed and I actually paid attention to was physiology. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and do biology or one of the sciences and see how that goes. Initially when I started, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but then I came to the realization that I would have to treat my sisters. Just kidding. So I told you, honestly though, I did think about being a veterinarian. I love animals and science as well. But, as I studied more, the sciences, I actually realized, wow, the human body really fascinates me in a different way than a teenager. The human body so I ended up deciding, I'm going to go pre-med. Not pre-med, but I'm going to try taking some of the classes that do that and see how that goes. So I tailored all my courses at De Anza, kind of to do that, to get myself into a school that actually had a pretty strong pre-med program. I didn't tell anybody at that time because, given my history, my academic performance, or what have you, anybody I would tell would probably be sure, whatever. And the funny thing is when you do that even though you do academically, even though I was doing academically well, I still had that doubt in me. I still didn't have that confidence to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do it. So, I didn't talk to a lot of people about it because I didn't want anybody to say negative things and kind of get at the self-confidence issues that I already had at that point. So I continued, did pretty well in 1998. I ended up transferring to UC Davis at that time. UC Davis was a pretty nice school. I enjoyed it. I was walking around it. I did so well that I had the opportunity to go to a lot of schools. Stanford at that time I couldn't afford, so there's no way I even looked at it. But I went to Berkeley, I went to different schools, and growing up in a tough neighborhood, you go to Berkeley, and even though it's not tough, it still has that atmosphere that I was just like, I went to Davis, and I was like, wow, they have a snoring ordinance here. They give people tickets for snoring. This is where I'm going to go. This is where I'm going to go. I don't have to worry about gangs or violence or what have you. And where I came from, that was perfect for me. So I went there. During my time there, I was part of CHE. I did a lot of volunteer work at UC Davis Medical ED. I also was pretty active at my church that I was going to, and in addition, I was part of Clinica Tepati, which is a student-run free clinic that is run both by the undergrads and the medical students. In addition to that, I work full-time. So how did I have time for that? I have no idea. But one thing though that I digress and go back to the time I was working at Mervin's, I also remember that time fondly because I actually met one of my biggest supporters in my whole process. Her name was Maria Lopez, now my wife. We have been through so much that, I just get emotional thinking about it. Truly, to tell you 100%, I would not have been if it wasn't for her. So I can thank God for that. So once I did this, I worked really hard, full time, doing all these things, and I managed to graduate with highest honors. And so after graduation, I decided, I was thinking to myself, do I really want to go right away to medical school, or is there something that I really wanted to do? And coming from the background that I did, coming from the environment, I actually wanted to do something that I know I probably would not be able to get an opportunity to do, and that would be something to give back to my community. So I started a teen pregnancy prevention program with collaboration with the YWCA in East San Jose. So that program was really neat though, because it actually exposed, what it did is expose high school students from the time period of 3 to 5:30 every day after school to tutoring, education, and actually exposure to the arts that they normally wouldn't get a chance to get exposed to. Statistically, if you read a lot of the literature, you see that between those times is when kids get involved with either drugs or other questionable activity that gets into trouble, that can get them into trouble. That was very rewarding, but the most important thing that I loved about that job is during that year, I actually was applying towards medical school. And when I was applying towards medical school, it was awesome because these kids went through that process with me, kids of like 30. And it was really neat. We would go through that whole process, and they had a chance to see that somebody that looks like them, somebody that talks like them, somebody that lives like them was actually accomplishing their dream. So to me, it was awesome. Even now, I still keep in touch with some of them, but most of them already, again, that was over 16 years ago, so they have their own families, their own happy. So that goes back to 2000. So now after a year, 2001, I was applying after having gone to medical school. I was deciding what school I wanted to go to. I decided to go to Stanford, and for me, this school was special to me. And it was special to me you read about, as you guys have heard here, it has a lot of opportunities, and a lot of support. It's really great. But to me, one of the deciding factors was my father. My father used to work as a janitor here when he first immigrated here. He was deported from San Jose one time, but that's another story. But anyhow, to him, the thought of one of his boys being a student at Stanford was overwhelming. As a matter of fact, it was, one time I went to my father and I said, hey Dad, check this out. I got into UCSF and UCLA, two of the excellent schools. And he said, oh, muy bien, hijo, muy bien. Like, okay. They didn't really understand. A lot of times they really, even though they tried to support me, they didn't really understand because my mother had a first grade education, my mother had a third grade education. But the one thing they did understand was that. Because one day I did call him. I went to the house and I said, guess what, Dad? I got into Stanford. And he, I was expecting the same reaction, but he actually cried. What am I supposed to do with that? I knew what school I was going to go to. Even Harvard could have called and I would have been like, okay. So in addition to that, it was location too. The love of my life was here, so that's where I decided to go. So the other thing, so going to medical school was pretty fun here. It was excellent. I took a year off to be a clinical manager at Harvard Free Clinic. I also tutored a lot of classes like anatomy, cardiovascular physiology, which was awesome. The money they paid for you to do that stuff was awesome. In terms of taking out of your tuition and what have you, it really, really helped a lot. In addition to that, the people that we had were pretty awesome. I don't know if you guys have seen, or if you guys have even had a chance to appreciate what Stanford has, and I don't know if it still does, but it has one of the highest underrepresented minorities percentage in the classes that during my time that we had seen. And that was pretty awesome, because you never realize your classmates that you have until you go to the school and you matriculate there, you see that. And to me, like a sharp contrast to that was this, like as our first year in medical school, we were deciding what did we want to do to kind of a bonding experience for all of us that are starting as first years to go into to kind of get to know each other and what have you. And these group of students came up and they're like, hey, we have a great idea. There's this place where you pay $50 and you can go pick strawberries. Like a lot of the other Mexican-American students, they would look at each other like, whoa, we just studied 12 years to get here to not do that. For me, that was interesting because it really contrasting experience that a lot of us have. But it was pretty actually good. We actually got to know each other, and it's pretty awesome to get to know people from very different backgrounds. Going back to my so during medical school too, one of the awesome things is that at Stanford, it kind of gives you exposure to a lot of things, pretty in depth, a lot of specialties, what have you. Initially, I was dead set on going into internal medicine or family practice. However, when I did my rotations, I loved anesthesia, and I actually got a chance to do anesthesia, and that's what I decided to do, and that's what I do now. In anesthesia, where I was looking also at all these different programs, and none of them really. It's really interesting because even though you'll feel in medical school, and I don't know if this has changed now, but medical school is a whole different process than residency, because in medical school they really do care about diversity. In residency program, I didn't get that vibe. They were just like, what are your numbers, and can you do the job, and how good are you, how hard working? So I didn't get that vibe to Stanford, so this is where I decided to kind of do my residency program. Initially, though, one of the years you did is transitional, and I ended up doing it at Valley Medical Center. Valley Medical Center is awesome to me. It actually, to me, is very rewarding because it completed a full circle for me. Valley Med is a county hospital located in San Jose on Baskin Avenue, and they actually treat a lot of the people that are like myself. As a matter of fact, my family were patients at Valley Medical Center when I was a child. So to me, to go there now as an MD was so rewarding and so awesome. And and it had its bad points too, because I still remember as a transitional intern, we were a lot of times you round on your patients, and then you come together with attending, and you're talking to you're giving a story of your patient, evaluation, what your plan is, assessment plan, and what have you. And all of a sudden, I just hear, Frain, you mother. That was actually one of my friends who was actually in jail at the time, but he was one of my old friends that was in jail at the time from high school, and he was like, and I turned to and he's like, my attendant was like, Frain, is that guy calling you? I'm like, yeah, he is. But see, just experiences like that, it made me, wow, this is awesome for me to work here. So working there, I very proud of myself. Proud to say that I was able to, as one of the only Hispanic, transitional intern during that year, I ended up getting Transitional Intern of the Year award. So I was proud of that, and proud to represent the hard work that a lot of us do. So after that year, I actually ended up we do 3 years here in residency. So my 3 years here, I did pretty well, and luckily I was able to get the Frank Starnquist Award for Community Excellence, as well as resident anesthesia resident of the year at Valley Medical Center, because we do some rotations there. After that, we ended up, I graduated at 2006, and I actually started working at O'Connor Hospital, which is a hospital, a Catholic Daughters of Charity hospital, probably in the news. A lot of you are hearing recently. I'm kind of glad I got out at this point. I'm not hearing this news, but working there was pretty fun. I really liked the job. You really get the exposure, but I did not feel the same satisfaction I did when working at BMC. I became really good friends with the chair at BMC, with the chair and the vice chair at that time. And one day, the vice chair called me and we were talking, and she said, we're hiring. And I said, think of me, I've always wanted to work there. And she said, okay, are you serious? And 2 days later, talked to me and offered me a job there. So I'm very happy. I was very happy at that time. So again, working there I love my job. I love what I do. It's very rewarding. My wife and I always talk about if we had to do it all over again, we would take the same path. Throughout my studies, I've met many peers from varying backgrounds. A few people with backgrounds much like my own, and then people with very, very different backgrounds. Establishing friendships with them helped me develop more as a person and as a student. These experiences have also taught me that diversity is very fluid. It's not just, the four of you before I started the whole procedure, you would ask me diversity, I would say, oh yeah, it's the amount of African Americans, Asians, Hispanics, and Anglos that are in the class. However, you know, I've learned through the years that diversity is actually all about experiences, culture, religion, what have you. There's diversity even among our own groups, we're diverse, even among Mexicans, even among what have you. So to me, that kind of changed a little bit my theory of what diversity is. In addition to that, you know, at work, now that, you know, when I first started my work, you know, I was the only Hispanic in the group that was an anesthesiologist. A lot of times I would go to the ED or the ICU to go prepare a patient to take him to the operating room, and they would confuse me as a janitor or as a transport person. You know, I didn't mind that. My father was a janitor. He's one of the hardest working persons that I know and I admire. But to me, that simply just showed me, wow, even though that as a society we've been changing a lot in terms of the composition of our society, that's not reflective in medicine. So to me, that actually was really stark, because to me it said, wow, we really have a lot more to do to be able to change that. Again, we must continue to work hard to increase the number of underrepresented minorities, whether it be as a physician assistant, whether it be as a nurse practitioner, or even a physician. We still should work hard to be able to do that, to be able to get that, provide that care. You know, another thing, and I know a lot of you guys hear about Obamacare. Well, it's really not Obamacare, it's called the Affordable Care Act. As the Affordable Care Act, I can tell you this from personal experience, as it comes into fruition, we're going to have an increasing number of patients from diverse ethnicities, again, religions, cultures, and socioeconomics joining our patient. I can't begin to tell you how the look on my patients have when I go to them and they see someone that looks like them, again, going back, looks like them, speaks like them, and looks like them, is taking care of them. Wow, the rapport that I build with those patients, and again, remember, up until this 6 months ago, I was the only Hispanic in our group, an anesthesia group. It's amazing what the rapport that you establish is so fast, and the trust that they believe, because they feel that. You feel that connection with the culture, what have you. You know, that type of feeling is something that I wish we could give all of our patients. So, you know, how will we do that? You know, it's ultimately yet determined to be seen. You know, right now what I do see is, and what we're seeing in our programs like Center of Excellence, that does a lot. I directly benefited from it. I'm here because of people like Dr. Mendoza, Dr. Garcia, and people that recognize this way before even, I'm not going to say before I was born, because then I'll offend them. But before, even when I was a child, they noticed it and they built this. And I think just building up on programs like that is how we're going to do it. And I hope all of you take advantage of programs like this and kind of use this to motivate you, like I used it to motivate you. So, you know, even now, I do whatever it takes, whatever I can. And, you know, having a busy schedule, I also work as a director of the pre-op clinic, regional, part of the regional team, and run the floor, so that keeps me pretty busy. But whenever I can, I still try to do that. I try to be a mentor at the Puente Project. I still try to speak to high school students and do a lot of things that I could, whatever opens up that I could possibly can. Again, this is something that's gonna, you know, you see programs like this, but this has to be done both in the undergraduate level, the junior college level, the graduate school level, and even in so you know, again, still barely in its roots, even though it seems like we've made strides. As Dr. Meyer said, we still have a lot to do. So just in closing, you know, as I look back to my journey and the accomplishments I've made, I can't help but remember the friends that I had who either died too soon or were incarcerated, as I mentioned back, the people that even saw me in the hospital. You know, many of the people that I grew up with were a lot brighter than me. I can tell you that for much certainty, with much certainty. You know, that fact that I know that makes me sad to think of where they could have been if they would have just been given that opportunity or taken that opportunity about. You know, I was very lucky. I had parents, both my own parents and my in-laws, that loved us very much and supported me very much, even though not, you know, sometimes in very different ways, they did support us. You know, I'm very happy to say though that my wife and I were able to buy my parents a house to show them our appreciation. The house that they always wanted but they never afford. And luckily, thanks to my wife and I'm pretty supportive, we were able to buy one. So that's in itself is a reward. Fruits of your labor that come there. But I also appreciate, as mentioned before, I appreciate all the help that counselors, like one of the counselors, Al Dominguez, that was at De Anza College. He was really, my parents didn't know how to guide me, how to support me, how to help me in terms of going to college. And I was stubborn. I was too afraid of asking for help because I was afraid people would say, no, you're not going to do it. You can't do it. It's crazy. Statistics. Look at you in high school and what have you. You look at your transcripts. Al Dominguez was actually somebody who really helped me. And through my 3 years at De Anza, he really guided me. So I'm very appreciative of people like that. I appreciate people in the Center of Excellence. A lot of people that helped me. Whether it was through the HCOP program or the EMP program that Dr. Mendoza was, I don't know, is it still around? Dr. Mendoza had formed. All those things help you out, and I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you very much for all the help. Overall, in terms of what I really want to do is my hope is that my story will inspire anyone out there who wishes to pursue a career in medicine. We all come from different backgrounds. We all face different adversities. Always remember to trust in yourself and have confidence. There will be hard times which will require you to lean on friends and loved ones. That's okay, because being able to lean on others and depend on others, actually enables you to be able to appreciate the skills and talents that other people have and can share with you. Always work hard. That was my secret. Whether it was working 2 jobs and still coming home dead tired, watching my friends, my family, my sisters all partying and having a good time, and I was like, yeah, I'm still for that kid. So I can guarantee you right now, I wasn't always the smartest person in the room, but I can guarantee you that I was always one of the hardest working people in that room. And I always would do anything, whatever it took to be able to accomplish my goal. Don't let anything stop you from pursuing your goals. Your goals, may take longer than you want to achieve them. As I talk to a lot of students, they're always saying, 2 years for this, 3 years for that, 4 years for that. Forget that. Do what you have to do. If it takes you 3 years, if it takes you 4 years, 5 years, as long as you're working towards that goal, you'll be okay. The longer it takes for you to make that goal, sometimes it makes everything worthwhile as you look back. And again, I hope this served to motivate you so that if a schmuck like me could do it, you guys have a good chance. All right. Good luck and thank you very much.
We're so lucky to have Dr. Rivera come and speak with you all. So for our final speaker, it's Dr. Mendoza, and I feel very lucky to be able to introduce him. He has supported me in my journey here in medical school. He is in residency going into pediatrics. He's someone I look up to as a role model of what it means to work in the field of diversity and pediatrics. He's a native from San Jose, a grad from San Jose State. He earned his medical degree here at Stanford, and he's a current professor of pediatrics, and his research is really focused on the health of Latino children and immigrants, and he's a recognized leader in diversity. So please give him a round of applause.
It's been a long day, but let me just start off first by congratulating our 2 wonderful medical students, Dr. Garcia. This is always a project of love, and the idea to spend all this effort to make it happen, and the way that it's happened for, 24, 25 years now? 24 years. I presume this happened before some of you were even born. So why does it happen? Why do we do this? You've heard the story that the dean told you about the issue that there are differences in our society that are pretty frank and really kind of terrible, right? He talked about something that happened 50 years ago where it was first seen, right? My father grew up in a segregated school in California as a farm worker, where all the Mexicans were. So this is not something new. And yet, at the same time, when we look at Dr. Rivera's experience, it's not always easy. And because somebody looks at him and says, well, you don't look like somebody who could go to college. You don't look like somebody who could be a doctor. There's not that relief. What this conference is about, it's about making you believe, preparing you, and at the end, having you understand that you are what we need for this country to succeed. Now, why should I say that? Because the country right now is going through a significant shift in its population's demographics. For example, California, the entering kindergarten class speaks 100 different dialects. So, who's going to be culturally competent to see 100 different cultures? Nobody, right? But yet, that's the challenge. 50% of all the babies being born in California are Latino. In your lifetime, in 2050, there will be more Latino children in the United States than white children. So when you look at the average American, what is that average American going to look like? It's not going to look like what it looked like in the 1950s. It's going to look like you. So our challenge is how to get to that place in a way that everybody's brought along. Our challenge is to get all of you to the place that you want to go to, medical school or nursing or pharmacy school. And the challenge, the barriers to that challenge is unfortunately, the outside society right now, the kinds of things you all have to face. So the reason for this conference has always been, for the last 24 years, is to inspire you to say, there's a barrier there. People don't believe. I have to work twice as hard. But that kind of effort that you just heard from Dr. Rivera brings success. And I can tell you that we need a lot of success among you. We need to have everyone in this room achieve their success. It cannot be a situation that in another 25 years we're still here making the same arguments. Because that would mean that we have failed as a nation. We have an opportunity to succeed as a nation. The human capital that you have, that is what you bring to this world to make a difference, is something that we have to nurture and bring out of you and help you succeed. Think about Dr. Rivera was not a doctor, was in prison. Not some of his colleagues. What kind of loss would that have been? Think about the 5 or 6 people that were his colleagues were a cardiac surgeon, a pediatrician, a dean of a medical school. What difference would that make? So at the end of the day, I think the big challenge for us as a nation, and we see it here at Stanford, is how to overcome these things that you all face, how to make each one of you successful, and how, at the end of the day, to hear the story that Dr. Rivera gave you, to hear it 1,000 times in a different way, of how I worked hard, how I overcame these things, and how I'm now really successful. That, to me, is what Dr. Garcia and I have been working over the years, having the gray hair for that. But we do it because we believe. We all believe that this is the thing we need to do. We all believe this is the only thing that really should be the priority of any university. Right? Universities are here to build the next generation of leaders, the next generation of knowledge. But I think they're also here to seek out that human capital that is throughout our society, from all cultures, all races, all religions, all ideas. And I think our deans said it the best with, we would like you to be successful. We would like Stanford to start that success. And I think hopefully what we did today to give you that little view of the world that could be the opening door for that success. So thank you for coming, and I thank everybody for their efforts and congratulations.